All right, welcome back to the channel. Before we get into this video, I just want to say that you should be subscribed to Beast Mode's channel because a lot of the information that I'm using technically comes from something that he is integral in putting together, which is the Edison War League. So if you don't know about the Edison War League, there's a bunch of different teams. I think they're comprised of 8 people. And from week to week, they play against each other. And whoever wins the best 3 out of 5 wins that whole week. So essentially, let's say Team A sends in 5 players out of their 8 on their roster, and then the other team, Team B, sends in 5 of their 8 players, and whoever wins 3 rounds first out of those teams, they automatically win that week, and that's the end of it. But this has been a really competitive thing that's been done in things like GOAT format, and now it's being done in Edison format, and I think it's really cool. But some statistics have come out from the results in the Edison War League, and I think that the numbers are just a little too big to ignore. So if you don't know, outside of being a content creator, being a Yu-Gi-Oh player, I'm actually a numbers guy. I'm an accountant in real life. It's what I do for a living, and numbers just always speak to me. So when I found out that a deck in the Edison War League has an 81% win rate as of the recording of this video. Currently, it is June 21st when I'm recording this. And the last data I got from it was from whatever week they're on in the War League right now. But there's a deck that has an 81% win rate. And to be specific, it has won 29 out of 36 games. So currently it is 29-7. And I shouldn't say games, I should say 29 out of 36 matches. So it has won 29 out of 36 matches, which is actually extremely impressive. I don't know if any deck has ever been this dominant in Edison format, despite the fact that we've had things like Black Wings that have definitely won a lot of tournaments and have tops all over the place. I think the year 2022 was the year of Black Wings. You saw that deck everywhere. It won a ton and all that. But 2023, despite the fact that Black Wings still is doing really well in this year, is definitely the rise of this new deck. And that deck is Hero Beat. So this is Diva Hero Beat. I believe this is the exact list that James Ark used in real life to win a Starlight Black Rose Dragon a couple months ago. I had him on my channel and we did a video where we played with the deck and we talked about it. I think we talked about it for over 20 minutes before we got into an actual duel. So there's a lot of information on this deck in that video, but this is definitely one of the best decks in the format. And technically right now it's performing as the absolute best deck in the format. So I wanted to make this video just to kind of inform the community on this being literally what you should be looking out for if you're going to play in any tournament in the future. I know that Nationals is coming up in a few weeks. There's going to be a 256-man Ultimate Time Wizard tournament there. I imagine you're going to see a good number of people playing this deck. It is very consistent. It is very good. It's hard to side against and be effective because the Divas make a lot of the cards that you would side against it not as good as they normally would be. But yeah, this deck is performing really well. And honestly, it doesn't even need to be the Diva version. It could actually just be the Hero Beat version that plays, you know, just Oceans and regular beatdown stuff and forgoes the Gilmans and the Divas. Both of the decks are really, really good, but I think the Diva version is just slightly better because Diva is an absurd card in general. Like 1 card Catastrophe, 1 card Android, also a shit ton of damage. And just everything that it does is a water monster. It's one of the best water monsters in the format. It gives you access to Brionic. You can do all types of crazy stuff. Like, for example, if you have a level 4 monster on the field and you have Diva and Miracle Fusion, that's 7,900 damage because you make Brionic with the 4-star monster and then you summon Gilman with the Diva. So you have Brionic, Gilman, and Absolute Zero. Absolute Zero will be at 3,500 for the 2 other water monsters on the field. Gilman will be at 1,700 because of his own effect, and he'll also buff Brionic. Brionic will be at 2,700. So you do the math, 27 plus 17 plus 35, and that brings you to 7,900 damage, which means that if any point you take any damage against this deck, it can randomly OTK you with a very basic combo. I've already mentioned this in a lot of my other content, but I do think that Stratos is a contender for best normal summon in the game. Like, it's probably the best monster that you want to open the game with, and it honestly doesn't have much competition. This deck gets to play 4 copies of it. It could theoretically play 5 if they added a 3rd E-Call. But yeah, this deck plays 4 copies of the best opener in the format, and then it just plays a lot of basic fundamental Yu-Gi-Oh! And I think that's why it's so good in the hands of good players, is because it's such a fundies deck. You don't really need all the bells and whistles. It kind of just does its own thing and 1-for-1s your opponent, and then eventually it starts getting to the point where, you know, you'll get your 2-for-1s where you go summon Alias and they'll bottomless it, and you'll Gemini Spark and pop another card, and now you've basically traded one of your cards because you replaced your Alias and Gemini Spark with a card, and then you'll have popped 2 of your opponent's cards. In that case, they'll have lost 2 cards. So you have gone 2-for-1 off of just Gemini Spark interacting with a D Prison or a bottomless or whatever. And that is a really powerful thing. Also, Ocean is insane if it ever recurs back your Stratos. A lot of the stuff you guys probably already know. Like, I don't have to go over everything that's good about the deck, but I will say this, because I'm working on another video. And part of the reason why I'm working on that video is because I had some thoughts about Miracle Fusion that came to me recently. And I realized that Miracle Fusion is probably the best top deck in the entire format. Like, when you think about it, one of the cards that you really don't want to see your opponent draw in a top deck situation has to be Miracle Fusion. It might be the most deadly one that can get your opponent back in the game. It summons a monster that is absolutely huge, and it also has a Regeki-like effect, and you don't have to give up any resources to summon it. So you could be completely winning the game against someone, and if they draw Miracle Fusion off the top, it can just swing the entire game in their favor. And I don't really know what other cards do that. Because when you think about, like, okay, you could draw Darkon, but you could draw it dead. You could draw Trap Dushy, you could draw it dead. You could draw Christie, but you could draw it dead. Like, Miracle Fusion is a card that if we're talking about later in the game when people don't have a lot of cards, Miracle Fusion is probably live, right? Because if they don't have a lot of cards, that means they've played the game. They've been doing Diva, they've been doing Alias and Stratos and stuff like that. So off the top, it is probably the best top deck in the format. And this deck retains a lot of its card advantage if you're playing well. Like, you naturally will just have a +1 or +2 over your opponent. You get a +1 from just summoning Stratos itself, so that's already a given. And then just anytime you get a Gemini Spark or a Hero Blast off, all these cards are pluses. So even in a situation where the deck is down, Miracle Fusion is insane. But imagine you're not even down, you're already winning, and then you're like Miracle Fusion to make it even worse. On top of that, this deck has a very fast clock. I'm noticing that the best decks in the format are basically divided into 2 categories. There's the decks that play Sirocco and Vayu, and there's the decks that play Miracle Fusion. And in my opinion, at the current time, those are the 2 best types of decks to play in Edison format. I think your deck should either be playing Miracle Fusion, or it should be playing Vayu and Sirocco, and that basically means Black Wings or Vayu Turbo. And if not those, then you're playing a deck like this Diva Hero beat, or you're playing Diva Hero, or you're playing the Frog Hero deck. I'm honestly at the point where I'm about to boil the entire format down to those are the 2 best decks, and everything else is just a step below. But we could definitely talk about that more in another video. I just think that having an 81% win rate when a lot of good players are playing in the Edison War League is very telling. And even when I did my tier list back in February, which I think I need to do another one of those, comment below if you want me to do another tier list, an updated one for June or whatever before Nationals. I can definitely get a tier list out because my thoughts have definitely changed a bit, but some of the things that I said back then, I'm happy that they're still pretty consistent with right now. For example, I had Hero Beat as an S tier deck. I had it up there with Black Wings and Christia Sworn and Zombies and Fairies and all that stuff. I do think, I've always thought that this deck is literally one of the best decks because Stratos is just insane, and then everything else it has going for it are also insane cards. But now the way I'm thinking about S tier decks, I really think it's just decks that play Miracle Fusion and decks that play Vayu and Sirocco. Again, just to reiterate, at the time of this recording, the deck is currently 29-7, which is 80.5%, or just 81 if you're rounding. But that is way too impressive to not consider when you're entering a tournament very soon, which is probably going to be Nationals for a lot of you. So anyways, I hope you guys found this video interesting. Let me know what you think about Diva Hero Beat being like the best deck basically in the format right now. Is this a deck that you play? Is this a deck that you like playing against? Do you hate playing against it? Have you been struggling against it? Maybe we can do a video where I talk about how to beat this deck, the best cards to side against this deck, because it is currently a problem. It is a very, very big problem. It's been doing very well in pretty much every single tournament this year, and that's not going to stop. Edison is a locked format, so unless people abandon the deck, it's going to continue to do well, and a lot of the better players are now playing it. So just something to consider. Anyways, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.